If you want to support the channel, please consider becoming a member today. Members get early access to videos, access to all the stream VODs, and exclusive access to emotes as well. So if you'd like to support the channel, become a member today. So this is a little bit old, but this popped up and I really wanted to watch this. This is a good old-fashioned Tucker Carlson clip. We love this guy. Anyway, he recently, and by recently I mean a couple months ago, like I said, I know I'm late. I'm sorry. Forgive me, okay? Had Ice Cube on his podcast. Because if you remember, conservatives, they used to think that rap was deranged degeneracy, glorifying sex, drugs, and hedonism. But now that some of these rappers are kind of conservative, well, they're actually really cool with rap. Rap is actually dope. It's what all the cool kids are listening to. And if you don't spit some fire bars, then you ain't a cool cat. Anyway, Ice Cube's thoughts on transgenderism. Just the title alone, you know this is gonna be good. Transgenderism. Okay. All right, Ice Cube, let's hear what you have to say, because apparently your opinion on this issue matters.
Do you think that it's harder to be a man in America now than it was when you were a kid?
Yes. Saying what you feel, being yourself.
Yeah, and God forbid, like, a man wants to wear a skirt or a dress, you just know conservatives will crucify that guy. Remember when Harry Styles did the photo shoot of him with a little skirt on that looked almost gender neutral? It was so, like, mundane and whatever. And then conservatives lost their shit, and Candace Owens did a whole spiel about how all the manly men are gone. They've all been drowned out by the river of soy. Remember? Yeah, maybe it's harder to be a man nowadays because of you numbskulls. Maybe that's why.
Is what they call toxic. You know, we shouldn't be called toxic for our instincts and for, you know, I was born this way. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, why can't we?
What are you talking about? Born what way? Do you think if we had like a beat playing in the background, it would make more sense? Maybe we would understand it better?
I was born this way. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, why can't we be ourselves? We were born this way too.
So this is the common misconception, again, that like lefties or liberals or left-leaning people in general hate men, call masculinity toxic, when in reality, the term toxic masculinity has been abused, I guess, I would say, for lack of a better word. As far as dumb on Twitter calling anytime a man does anything they don't like toxically masculine or something, I can empathize with that, and I hear you. And there is criticism to be made there. However, toxic masculinity as the concept generally just refers to certain expectations that are placed on men that are actually toxic to the man. It's not just that the man is being toxic, it's that these expectations, like, you're a man and you're tough, you shouldn't be crying. These kinds of expectations are toxic to the man. That's all that means. This doesn't mean that we hate men. Quite the opposite, actually. This comes from a place of trying to raise awareness about the standards and expectations that we place on masculinity that are not only toxic to other people and women and everything, but are also toxic to the man himself. It's a detriment to his own mental well-being.
So there are some groups, like if I say I'm trans, then people say, that's great, you were born that way, we affirm you. But if you say I'm just a dude with male instincts, you're not affirmed.
Well, yeah, because I want to know what the male instincts are. I'm not gonna lie, that sounds a little creepy. What are male instincts? This sounds like when like a guy catcalls you, or like goes up to the random woman and like smacks her ass, and then she gets upset and he's like, why am I catching heat? Why am I catching flack for my masculine instincts, man? Why can't I just be myself, dude? That's what this sounds like, I'm not gonna lie.
Attacked.
Yeah, I mean, everybody doesn't really have to affirm you. You know, if I wake up and say, you know, I feel like a pigeon, and I want everybody to treat me like a pigeon.
A pigeon isn't a socially constructed form of gender. It's not a gender identity. It's not something you can just identify as and then be. A pigeon refers to a category. It refers to a specific bird, a specific type of animal. It's a category. So this is again, another thing that a lot of conservatives do. These arguments are very annoying, where they lump identity in with categories. So just if there's a category, just if there's a label like pigeon, doesn't mean I can then identify as that thing and then be that thing. But man and woman refers to a socially constructed form of gender identity. It refers specifically to an identity. Just like I'm a streamer because I stream, I'm a streamer. That is a form of identity. I can now identify as a streamer and be a streamer. Just if I can identify one way doesn't mean that I can then say, well, actually now I'm a millionaire and I identify as a millionaire, so there, ha. No, it doesn't work that way. Some things can be identified with and as, and some things cannot be.
Some people may say, whatever, Q, we treat you like a pigeon. But some people may choose to be like, dude.
Dude, if anyone's being treated like a pigeon, it's Ice Cube, because right now he's sounding coo.
No.
Riz.
That's your world.
Yeah.
I'm not part of it. And I have to be ready for that. It's a big world.
Well, maybe someone's not ready to be part of your manly instincts and just being a guy, a bro. Like, I never understand the cognitive dissonance here. We're a minute in, and he went from, people don't just have to accept you and affirm you, to, oh, but then, like, men are just called toxic and, like, getting shit on, you know? It's like, I thought that people don't have to affirm you. I thought people don't have to be nice to you. You need to be ready for that. You just said that.
World out here. Everybody doesn't have to adhere to me.
That's called narcissism, right?
Yeah, it seems like it.
No, it's also narcissism to say that you're not going to respect someone's gender identity because it doesn't make sense to you, because you were too stupid to actually do the proper research necessary to understand this thing. You're the one who's being narcissistic. You're saying, my standard is the only standard. It's the only metric by which I can measure whether or not this thing is going to be respected or not. And if it doesn't check out with my own metric, then I'm saying no. Then I'm not going to respect that. That's what narcissism sounds like. Saying, hey, I go by she, her pronouns. Could you just refer to me with she, her pronouns? That'd be great, thanks. That's not narcissism. It's narcissism to say, because you don't understand it, it therefore must be objectively incorrect, and so you're not going to respect it. That's narcissism.
Yeah. Seems like you're trying to bend the universe to your will. And it don't work like that.
We've been talking.
What? Okay, humans have been trying to bend the world to our will forever. That's partially what we have done. That's why we have technological advances. That's why we have electricity. Bending the universe to our will is what humans do.
Almost all day now. You haven't mentioned race a single time. We've mentioned economics, rich and poor, a number of times. Do you think that we overplay the role of racial conflict in American life?
Yes. I think race, it takes up too much space. There's people that we all have in our lives who are same race that we can't stand. And there's people in our lives from other races that we get along with way better. So it's not about race. It's not about color and gender and this and that. It's about who do you connect with? You know, who do you vibrate with?
So an unironic, who do you vibe with? He's only thinking of interpersonal racism here. When he's like, well, people of both races and different races hate each other, so what's the difference, blah, blah. He's talking about interpersonal racism there. He's completely neglecting to acknowledge systemic racism, which makes it so that black people, even today, are in disproportionately worse circumstances a lot of the times. Disproportionately. Doesn't mean all black people, but black people disproportionately are in worse circumstances because of racism from the past, because of things like redlining, which kept generations in poverty and prevented them from being able to build up generational wealth and send their kids to college, which then prevented those kids from raising their kids better and accumulating wealth, which then led to a negative downward spiral. And then we revert back to this, who do you vibe with? Maybe this, Ice Cube, can you just stick with writing rap, please, and not do this whole Tucker spiel thing? Can you not do this, please? Undo, okay? Control Alt, not delete. Control Z. Control Z.
You know what I mean?
I
Who's
do.
on the same wavelength?
Yeah.
Who wants to be the
And trans people aren't on my wavelength, fam.
same kind of person? Who wants to do the right thing when you want to do the right thing? That's who you connect with. So I think a lot of people make a lot of money off of the racists fighting against each other and bickering. And they the ones who push it in our face all the time that we're separate. And
Does feel like there's more of that, doesn't there?
yeah, it seems like it's like you're stuck in a bad movie and you can't get out. Like you can't find the exit.
Maybe it's because there's a lot of problems still with systemic racism and problems with the way that black people are being treated, say, at the hands of police. And now that we have social media, there's more awareness about it. When things like this happen, it becomes a massive story because it goes viral. More people are talking about it. Is it more common, or are we just more aware of it now?
And it continues to play on the screen, and you're just running around looking for the exit, and this bad movie continues to just haunt you day by day by day by day. You know, that's what we're caught in. A never-ending, winless battle of, you know, of race and color, and we're worried about, you know, where you from, and, you know, it was a saying in hip-hop, early hip-hop, I think Rakim coined this phrase, you know, it ain't where you from, it's where you at, you know, and it's so true.
That would be a really wonderful mindset if everybody in the USA had that mindset. But right now, it doesn't seem like black people are afforded that privilege. They're not given that mindset. People don't always have that mindset, specifically when it comes to the way the police engage with black Americans. When we look at the way that black people are disproportionately roughhoused or disproportionately victims of police brutality in general, it becomes apparent that sometimes people like the police, the state, people in authority positions aren't looking at people where they're at and are judging them based on where they're from. That ideal mindset is a good one. I want everybody to be treating people, again, based on their character, right? Not on the color of their skin. I want that too. But I also have a realistic mindset. And I have to accept the sad fact that we live in America in current year and we're still dealing with problems with racism. Because I'm willing to accept it. I have the balls to accept that.
You know, and it's so true. It's not about where you come from. It's about where you at right now.
What if you come from an area that was disproportionately impoverished due to systemic racism, and because of that, because it was an area that was impoverished, you didn't have good access to proper education, which led to you not having nearly good enough opportunity for college, which led to you not being able to find a good job, not to mention you're in a bad, shitty area, which is already impoverished, so there's way less businesses in this area to begin with, so your opportunities are now cut short. What if you've come from this place? That's going to affect you. That's going to shape you.
I'm not imagining that this stuff is being pushed on us, right?
No.
Much more than in, say, 1986.
I like how Carlson is like, needs reassurance and validation. I'm not just imagining this, right, Ice Cube? Right? So before he goes to sleep at night, am I just a soulless grifter who is literally shamelessly lying about problems, particularly because it makes me money? No, Ice Cube told me that I'm right. Yeah, okay.
Yes, I think so. Because in 1986, you had movies and television, and it was all scripted, and we knew this is a scripted show. But I think now you have so many so-called reality shows that basically push the same thing, but in a reality-like setting. So, you know, you'll watch a movie on race, okay? And you flip channel now, you're watching a somewhat like documentary reality show that's highlighting and magnifying race and status and where you belong in this country and where you don't. And, you know, we're highlighting the bad guys here. We're highlighting the good guys, you know. It's always really showing controversy and pitting each other against each other. And with the reality shows, you know,
maybe some of these shows are trying to raise awareness of issues that are sometimes ignored or neglected or downplayed. Tucker Carlson, I really don't understand his point. Were reality shows not a thing back then? Were documentaries not happening in 1986? 1987, the world was introduced to the documentary.
Controversy sells, so they're not showing people getting along. What they want to get to is the fight, the conflict, you know, the argument.
I mean, he does have a bit of a point there. It's true that the media profits off of conflict and drama, of course. I mean, when do you turn on the news, right? It's when there's been a shooting. It's when there's been some kind of a tragedy. It's when something's going on that's usually bad, that's scary. So you're turning on the news frantically, trying to figure out what the is going on. Most people aren't tuning into the news because they're like, oh, goody, I hope I hear about that golden retriever that brought the old lady that ice cream cone today. Oh, goody. No, it's true. Drama and conflict absolutely does garner more attention and clicks or whatever, but that doesn't mean that the media is making it up or faking it. It could also be that right now, a lot of people are very aware and conscious of race and racial inequality and systemic racism. So when there is another issue with systemic racism, the media is quicker to report on it because they know the people, the general public, are more likely to, yes, tune into that. Of course, always be skeptical. Of course, always double check things. Of course, always fact check. Don't just blindly turn on the television and just listen to whatever the news person is saying blindly and believe it. No, of course, do your own research. Don't just be a zombie. But at the end of the day, I don't really know what the media capitalizing on drama has to do with much of anything, other than I guess he's trying to say the media, because they profit from this, are just bringing more attention to this thing. Maybe that's good, because this is obviously something that's been happening that now is finally getting its due attention.
Throwing at the bottles, the turmoil, the differences, and, you know.
Does that bear any resemblance to your actual life as someone who lives in this country? Like, do you have racial conflict in your life day to day?
Probably, you know, most of them are unseen. You know, I'm not going to say I encounter racism. People know who I am. Police know who I am. Everybody knows who I am. So I probably get a pass on a lot of things that friends, family members, people I associate with, people I love go through all the time because they're not Ice Cube. But, you know, I've had, you know.
So if a lot of people are subjected to unfair treatment, and that unfair treatment is because of the color of their skin, and that unfair treatment is not being given to white people because of the color of their skin, what do you call that? Is this something that's being made up? Is this something that's being blown out of proportion? Is this something that's taking up all of our conversation? No, but it's an important thing that needs to be talked about. Maybe it's good that it's taking up a lot of our conversations. This is something that needs to be talked about.
I've had an insurance company drop me because they didn't like my point of view. You know, things like that.
Are you mad about it? Are you mad at people for their skin color ever in the course of a day?
I'm not, but I am mad at Tucker because he's white specifically. Otherwise, he's literally like the golden child. He's amazing. He's like Jesus Christ himself. But then he's white, so it's like, nah, I hate him now.
I'm not mad at people because of their skin color. You know, I'm mad at people because of what they do and the things they choose not to do.
Right.
And what if there are people that say choose not to give black people a job, even though they are just as qualified as the white person who applied for the job? The only difference is that the black person has a more black-sounding name, sounds more ethnic. The white person has the common name like Jake or John or something, you know, easy and very white sounding, very white. What about like that? Is that worth getting upset about? Because this is the reality for many black Americans. There have been studies done in 2001 that found this result. There was a study done in 2017 that found the same result. If it's a subconscious bias, Okay, maybe it's easy to be like, well, it's subconscious. They're not consciously thinking like, I hate black people. So who the cares, really, like, everyone has subconscious biases, whatever. Yeah, okay, maybe it's easy for you to say that, but if that subconscious bias is costing you your job, now there is a bit of a problem. Now this might be worth actually having a conversation about.
Now, I'm mad at people because of what they do and the things they choose not to do.
Right.
There's a big problem in this country with the financial banking system and black people and our access to capital. I know that when it breaks.
So now he's talking about systemic racism and legitimate issues. He's right. There are significant barriers there still. It feels like he's contradicting himself. He's like, people are making way too big of a deal about this. Why is it always talking about race, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, so here's the way that I experience racism, and here's the way that racism happens all the time. And it's like, bruh.
We have, 13 to 15% of the country trying to live off of half a percentage of wealth, 0.05% of wealth. So that's an issue. That's a problem. We have to have access to capital so we can do cool things for South Central. If we drove past one of those lots and a guy that lived there wanted to put a store up, he just couldn't get a loan because of his zip code. Now, guys from outside the area, they can come in and they can get a loan and put that store up. And that has to change.
Okay, so this was Ice Cube on Tucker Carlson talking about trans people very minimally. It was mostly about race. I don't know why this was even about, why the title said trans. Maybe that like got more views or something. I don't know. But yeah, wow, very scattered. Also seemed contradictory where he was saying like people are making too big of a deal out of race, but then he was acknowledging where race and racism specifically are still like a massive problem. So that was a little bit strange. Yeah, okay. I wonder if it's something to do with Tucker Carlson. Maybe he put something in the water there. Maybe like, you show up at Carlson's studio, he gives you a sip of some stuff to drink, and next thing you know, you're start schizo posting on Maine.